you know,
That's fantastic. That is really
yeah,
fantastic. So, of course, we got to jump to Letterman. And I've always made things great that you were working with him. I was a huge, huge fan and stayed up all times. I pissed my parents off as a youth all the time because I would stay up to watch Late Night with David
right.
Letterman
That was
for the
12:30
Late
to one
Show,
thirty.
and
Yeah.
that was 12:30. But I thought that show was just hilarious. And I had one of my cousins live in North Jersey. She had two friends who were writers on that show. I won't remember the names, but she knew them
Hmm.
very well. And she told me early on, you got to watch this Letterman stuff. My friends are on it. I'm like, okay. And then I was like, this is hilarious. It
Yeah.
was just this irreverent late at night. Who gives a shit? We're just going to make up whatever we want. I mean, we're dropping watermelons from the roof. Who does this stuff? It was
Right.
just great because it was innocuous humor that really was funny though. And I agree. So graduating into the Late Show, I don't know if you felt the same way, but I never really thought Letterman was the same from Late Night to the Late Show. He seemed like he got more corporate. I could be stereotyping that from what everybody else says, but I really saw it myself too, that he wasn't really the same guy. But I figured because it's 11:30, it's a bigger time slot. You got to kind of dial it back a little bit. And I also noticed that he became less of an ego when he went to the Late Show. Whereas I remember looking a lot at the Late Night where he's a comedian, right? And he's got an ego. He always tried to one up the other person. He always tried to be a little funnier. And as the person who is the host of the show, you saw Kyle Carson did it, never really did that, maybe occasionally, but he let that person grow. Where I really saw him become much better interviewer when he came to the Late Show. So did you notice that as well?
Yeah, everything you said, I agree with. I know that I used to watch the late night show at 12:30, and I thought it was great and irreverent, like you said, and so different and smart. And Chris Elliott and the bands were great
Elliot.
that would be on the show, and they'd break all these incredible bands, and they brought in these great the wilder comedians that were more edgy than original. And then when they moved to CBS, which was in '93, it seemed to me as a watcher of the show that they were trying to become an 11:30 show as opposed to a 12:30 show. It appeared that way. I didn't
Yeah.
start working until '97, but they moved in like August 30th, 1993, and the show seemed a little bit different. They still had that goofiness, and I guess, Letterman was very close with Johnny and worshiped Johnny Carson, and they talked all the time. Johnny would write jokes that we do in the monologue, and he was very involved. In fact, the producers of Tonight Show with Johnny Carson helped Dave out when he first was doing what he was doing,
Wow.
in late night. Even the warm up, the whole setup of the warm up was taught by the producers of the Tonight Show. They all loved Dave like crazy, and he got just kept getting better and better at what he did. And as he got older, like anybody, you get older, you have newer ideas, fresher ideas, and you have to
Right.
work on them. Like, you see some band who's playing some sort of like the Beatles at the beginning were playing, fun, good music, and I gotta want to hold your hand and all this kind of stuff. And eventually they started doing, the darker, cooler, more intricate, more adult things. Because you get older, you have this new thing about you, and fans want you to stay um, as what they remember you because it's
Sure.
their memories. But
Absolutely.
it's not up to Dave to try to create stuff for his fans. It's more about, what I like I said, I've learned Dave has to create what makes him laugh, what he finds silly and ironic, and he had a great group around him. That's the one of the beauties of working there is the best directors, the best writers, the best lighting people, the best producers. He got to pick and choose the best of the best of the best. Most of the writers were from Harvard. It was just it was an incredible group of people, and he even had said, he said, my name's on the marquee, so every night I need that show to be amazing.
Right.
So it was as he got older, and he moved to 11:30. There was a shift, but it wasn't about like, oh, I have to go back and change. No, I have to continue to shift with my show, and shift the show has to shift with me. So
Gotcha.
at the beginning I felt like you did, and later I realized, wait a second, he's doing what he wants.